students, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's is our quiz 1 for the month of January 2025. This will consist of questions from different topics of MET, NAV, REX, Tech, Radio, Telephony. The intention of this lecture is to make things interesting, have fun, and to recall many memory items that we have learned so far. So this is a good exercise for your brain and also short preparation for your airline exams. So let's start with today's question. Question number 1. The end of the runway is indicated by what? So we have a runway, okay, and we have the starting end of the runway, which is the approaching end, and then we have the end portion of the runway. So we have to identify the light colors which are put on this runway ends. So this is an example, or this is a picture of the runway. Now the direction from where you are landing, from that direction you will be able to see a row of green lights, you will be able to see a row of green lights. After you land on this portion of the runway and you start rolling down the runway, on the opposite end of the runway, where the runway ends, you will be able to see red lights. You will be able to see steady red lights. Okay. So always the approach end of the runway green and the end of the runway after you land is red in color. So the end of the runway is indicated by option C, red lights. Very important question. So runway end lights shall be provided for a runway equipped with runway edge lights. So if you have this runway edge lights which are white in color, so you should also have runway end lights. Next recommendation by ICAO is runway end lights shall be fixed unidirectional lights showing red in the direction of the runway. Okay, so it should show red in color in the direction of this runway. So that means when you are rolling down this runway or traveling on this runway, you will be able to see the red light. Now the person standing on the other side of the runway somewhere here, he will not be able to see that red light. The next, runway end lights should consist of at least 6 lights. Okay, it should at least should consist of at least 6 lights. So remember these 3 points also for your regulations exam. Next, the displace threshold is indicated by what? The displace threshold is indicated by what? So this is your entire runway portion, entire runway. Now at some airports, due to noise abatement procedures or due to some construction work or maintenance work, some portion of the runway in the beginning may not be suitable for airport operations or for movement of aircraft. Okay, though in many resources, in many textbooks, they have mentioned that this portion of the runway, okay, can still be used for taxiing your aircraft or for departure for the purpose of departure, taking off. But this portion can strictly not be used for landing purpose. So in such cases, we have a new threshold which is created temporarily, which we call that displace threshold. Okay, so threshold is the starting portion of the runway. Okay, but when we cannot use the runway right from the start, okay, then we have to make a new threshold for the purpose of identification of the starting of the runway for use. We call it displace threshold. Okay, and this displace threshold is indicated by white arrows leading to that threshold. So the center line of this runway portion is converted into white color arrows, and this row of 4 arrows which are always pointing towards the displace threshold. So even here you can see that this is the starting portion of the runway here. Okay, the runway starts here, but the displace threshold is some distance ahead of that start, somewhere here, shown by the arrows. Okay, so the displace threshold is indicated by a row of red color lights on the edge. Okay, and then a row of red color lights on the edge and white arrows on the runway. So the correct option will be red lights. Correct option will be red lights. So by looking at this red lights, the pilot on his approach part will come to know that he doesn't have to land on this portion of the runway. The runway starts beyond this displaced threshold. So beyond this displaced threshold is where he will touch down his aircraft. Next. Question 3. The location of ice formation is at the pitot tubes. Which of the following methods is suitable for control of ice formation at this location? Now pitot tube. Pitot tube, this is your pitot tube. Now all our pitot tubes have you if you have flown on Cessna 172 or any other trainer aircraft, these pitot tubes have heating element in them, and this heating element can be activated from from the cockpit. Okay, so whenever you're flying in conditions which are moist, in which when you're airborne, you see clouds developing, raining. So such conditions warrant that you use pitot heat so as not to allow ice forming in the pitot tube. If ice forms in the pitot tube, the airspeed indicator will get affected, and that is not good for the safety of flight. Next thing, pitot tube is an anti-icing instrument. It's not a de-icing instrument, it's an anti-icing instrument. So, pitot tube is prevented from icing by use of electrical method, pneumatic method, thermal method, alcoholic method. So, correct option is Charlie. It is thermal method. Okay, remember that. The activation of pitot heat is predicated on the occurrence of possible icing conditions. If you suspect that you're going to enter icing conditions, you will activate this pitot heat element in the pitot tube. Okay, and how will you know whether icing conditions are developing or not? So moist conditions, the temperatures around your aircraft, the altitude you're flying, formation of clouds, fog, haze. So these conditions are indicative of icing developments. Next, the temperature, if it's below freezing at altitude you're flying and clouds forming, this indicates that there is ample amount of moisture at your altitude. So a potential for icing exists. So use pitot heat. Next, through the use of datum setting knob. Datum setting knob is Boltzmann window in the altimeter. So this is your altimeter. Here you have altimeter pressure setting window, Boltzmann window or datum setting knob. Which of the following references is provided by a simple pressure altimeter? So when you use Boltzmann window, what reference can be provided by altimeter? It provides reference for the operation of aircraft at specific flight level. It provides reference of height above airport. It provides reference of altitude above sea level. So all three are correct. A, B, C are correct. So I have covered this in detail in the altimeter playlist that I have created. There is one playlist in which I have solved all questions of altimetry chapter from Oxford Meteorology, and in solving those questions I have explained this concept again and again. I have also made a separate video on altimetry, fundamentals of altimetry. I will put the link of those videos in the description box. So do check the description box after you watch this video, and watch those videos for more clarity. But in short, if I have to explain this altimeter setting window, you can put QNH atmospheric pressure, which is a mean sea level pressure, QFE, or standard pressure setting. Whatever pressure setting given by ATC you can put in this, but normally you put QNH whenever you are flying at or below transition altitude. You put standard pressure setting at and above transition altitude. Okay, and QFE at some airports, when you come down below transition altitude, you may be provided with a QFE pressure setting, which is the aerodrome pressure setting. So all your vertical distances will be measured from QFE pressure data. Now, when you use QNH in the altimeter setting window, the vertical distance will be measured from mean sea level, and you call that vertical distance altitude. When you put QFE in the altimeter pressure setting window, the vertical distance will be measured from aerodrome level, from the ground level, okay, from the aerodrome level, and that vertical distance is called height. Okay, when you use QFE, all your vertical distances will be classified or labeled height. when you use standard pressure setting, this standard pressure setting has vertical distance being measured from the standard pressure datum, which is fixed according to ISA 1013 millibars. Okay, so for all your vertical distances will be measured from 1013 pressure level, and that vertical distances are called flight levels or pressure altitude. Flight level or pressure altitude. So this way, this demonstrates that whatever this demonstrates the fact that your vertical distance depends on the pressure setting that you put in the pressure setting window and nothing else. Question number 5. Which of the following equipments uses primary radar principles? Primary radar principle. Now, in case of primary radar, you have a radar antenna on the ground, let's say. What is primary radar principle? The primary radar antenna on the ground will send radio pulses, okay, to aircraft in the air, on the ground, anywhere. This radio pulses will go to aircraft, strike that aircraft, and then return to this primary radar. It will return to the primary radar. So this is called operation of principle of primary radar. That is the frequency at which the frequency of transmission is equal the frequency of reception, is equal to frequency of reception. Meaning, if you send this, if you the primary radar transmits or sends an interrogation signal to aircraft at 1 gigahertz, it will receive the same radio wave back at same frequency, 1 gigahertz. That means the aircraft doesn't interfere with the operation of primary radar principle. It is only dependent on the ground antenna primary radar. It will send a radio wave at one frequency. The radio wave will go to aircraft, strike that aircraft, and return to primary radar at the same frequency. The uses of this is that with the help of primary radar, the ATC can come to know about aircraft bearing. That means in what direction is aircraft located with respect to the primary radar. And second is aircraft position. ATC will be able to see the position of aircraft on his radar scope, radar screen. Now next, after primary radar, we have something called secondary radar. Secondary radar. Secondary radar is more technologically advanced. Okay, so this secondary radar is on the ground. There is aircraft in the air. The secondary radar will send an interrogation signal. To aircraft in the air. Okay, the frequency of that signal will be 1030 hertz. Aircraft will respond to this interrogation signal at another frequency, which will be 1090 hertz. 1090 hertz. So that means the frequency of interrogation signal of interrogation is not equal to frequency of reception. And in case of secondary radar principle, there is an airborne equipment. Now your primary radar doesn't need airborne equipment. Okay, it only goes to aircraft, strikes, and come back. But for the working of secondary radar principle, you need a ground equipment and you also need airborne equipment. That airborne equipment is called transponder. Is called transponder. Now this transponder will answer to or will reply to this interrogation pulse transmitted by the secondary radar. And this reply will consist of different information which is very useful for the ATC, like the pressure altitude of aircraft. ATC will also get information about the transponder code, SCOC code, the identification of aircraft, the speed of aircraft, and any other relevant data. So these are the advantages of secondary radar over primary radar. So let's go back to our question. Before that, so this is how a transponder looks in your Cessna aircraft or any other trainer aircraft. So you have this four-digit code. So whatever transponder code is given to it is given to a pilot by ATC, he can put that code in it. Also, you have options of off, alt, on. So this using this knob, you can select the option. You can, if ATC tells you to SCOC ident, so you can select the ident option here, and when you select that option SCOC ident, so there will be a flashing. Your aircraft will flash on the ATC radar screen, and that way the ATC can identify your aircraft. So this is your secondary radar on top of primary radar. Okay. So this secondary radar is a very important chapter to be studied in radio navigation of Oxford. So do read this chapter multiple times, okay, and then also research about this topic in Wikipedia. So you will get many much more important points in Wikipedia also. So which of the following equipments uses primary radar principle? Now secondary surveillance radar will not use primary radar. Distance measuring equipment, airborne weather radar, GPS. So the correct option is airborne weather radar. Airborne weather radar uses primary radar principles. Distance measuring equipment uses secondary radar principles. Next, aircraft flies from waypoint 7 to waypoint 8. Okay, the aircraft position currently is so and so. What is the cross track distance in relation to the planned track? So 63 north, 73 west is here. 62 north, 73 west is here. And currently aircraft is at 62 north, 73 west, 10 degrees. So I'll draw it here. 63 north, 73 west, 62 north, 72, corrections, 73 west. Aircraft is at 62 north, 73 degree, 10 minutes west. So this is your original track. You were meant to fly between these two points, but currently you are somewhere here. You have to find, according to the question, the cross track distance. You have to find this distance, cross track distance. So now this can be solved using 1 in 60 rule. So this distance is your distance gone. This is your distance off track or cross track. And then, so what is distance gone? Now distance gone is great circle distance. Okay. The difference between latitudes into 60. So difference between these two latitude is 1 degree into 60 is 60 nautical miles. Next, the angle. Angle here is 73 degree west, and this is 73 degree 10 minutes west longitude. 73 degree 10 minutes west longitude. We can calculate the rumline distance, which is the cross track distance. So rumline distance equals to d long in minutes into cos lat. So d long, the difference between these two longitude is 10 minutes. Latitude is 62. So cos 62 into 0 degree 10 minutes equals to 4.6 nautical miles. 4.6 nautical miles. Now we have right and we have left. So it will be 4.6 nautical mile left. 73 degree west is here. 73 degree 10 minutes west will be here. Okay. So 4.6 nautical miles left. So next question. Question number 7. Density altitude may be defined as what? Density altitude is an altitude in standard atmosphere at which prevailing pressure occurs. An altitude in standard atmosphere at which prevailing density occurs. Surface of constant pressure related to 1013 to standard atmosphere. So correct option is option Bravo. Density altitude is an altitude in standard atmosphere at which the prevailing density occurs. Meaning what? Let's say you are flying at mean sea level. You are taking off from mean sea level. Okay. And the temperature at mean sea level is currently 30 degrees Celsius. Is 30 degree Celsius. Now, according to ISA, the temperature at mean sea level must be 15 degrees Celsius. Okay. But we seldom have ISA conditions uh, any random day, right? We have different conditions. Sometimes it's hotter than ISA, sometimes it's colder than ISA. Now this temperature will influence your density. Now warmer than ISA conditions will decrease density of air, colder than ISA conditions will increase density of air. Okay, so now we have a concept called density altitude. That means we have normal altitudes like pressure altitudes, your flight levels, your true altitudes, your height. But density altitude is a different concept which is not dependent on your altimeter pressure setting. It is dependent on the density of atmosphere around you. So although you are flying from mean sea level, it does not mean that you will have maximum air pressure or maximum air density which is expected at mean sea level on an ISA day. You may be taking off from mean sea level, but the temperature conditions surrounding you will be equivalent to the conditions which are expected at much higher altitudes in ISA conditions. Okay, so if you are at ISA at mean sea level and the density around you, the density of air at that mean sea level is something like density of air to be found on the top of Himalayas. Okay, so this will impact your aircraft performance very badly. So no use of just having your airport at mean sea level. That alone won't help. You also need the support of temperature, humidity to have a maximum performance for your aircraft. Okay, just being at mean sea level and expecting maximum performance is not sufficient. If you are at mean sea level but density and humidity of air is too high, if density is very low and humidity of air is too high, then your density of air will get affected. Okay, and that's why your density altitude will increase. So if density at mean sea level is equal to density that is to be found at 18,000 feet in ISA, then you will say that the density altitude of your airport is 18,000 feet. So the density of air at that airport will determine your density altitude. So you will have to first check the density of air, the ambient density of air at the airport, and then will have to check this table. On this table, where you find that particular density, at what level will you find that particular ambient air density in ISA. Now, the density at your mean sea level airport, if it's the density which is happens, which is found at 18,000 feet, okay, so your density altitude will be 18,000 feet. So you will be taking off from mean sea level, but your aircraft engines will think that it is taking off from 18,000 feet because the airflow that is passing through that engine will be very less dense, okay, just like 18,000 feet air, very thin. So that's why we have a concept of density altitude, which influences aircraft performance, climbing abilities, the way you will lean your mixture or enrich your mixture, etc., etc. So it is where the prevailing density occurs. That is the current density, ambient density around you. That density where it occurs in the ISA. That is your density altitude. Question 8. Coriolis force. Before this, I have also made a detailed lecture on density altitude, and I have put in the knowledge series playlist of air navigation. I will also put a link of that video in the description box. Apart from that, I have also solved questions of density altitude, pressure altitude, similar items from RK Bali, and I have put those questions in the RK Bali solved questions playlist. So also watch that playlist, watch those videos, and revise your concepts or learn the concepts from a different point of view. I have explained density altitude in much detail in that video. Coriolis force is due to what? Now, Coriolis force is not a force really, it's an effect. Okay, it's a consequence of something that is happening on the planet Earth. Now, we all know that the planet Earth revolves from west to east, and as a result of that revolution, the winds or the air flowing on the surface of the earth will deflect left side, right side along with that revolution or because of that revolution. This we call Coriolis effect. Okay, the Coriolis effect is the curving of the path of objects, fluids due to the rotation of the earth, due to the rotation of the earth around its own axis. So the direction of rotation is from west to east if you are in the northern hemisphere. If you are in the northern hemisphere and the winds in the northern hemisphere, if it is going towards the north pole, it will get automatically deflected to the right hand side instead of going straight to the north pole. Due to the rotation of the earth towards easterly direction, it will deflect towards the right. If the wind is in the northern hemisphere and blowing from north pole towards the south pole, instead of going directly to the south pole, it will get curved or deflected to its right hand side. Okay, to its right hand side. So in the northern hemisphere, the winds deflect to their right hand side. In the southern hemisphere, the winds will deflect to their left hand side. So this is because of the rotation of the earth. Okay, it creates a Coriolis effect. So Coriolis force is due to rotation of the earth, pressure gradient, circular motion of the wind around isobars, temperature gradient. So correct option is option A, rotation of the earth. Pressure gradient is the force of attraction between high pressure area and a low pressure area. So option Bravo is correct. In is incorrect. Correction. Circular motion of the wind around isobars, that is irrelevant. Temperature gradient. So temperature gradient is not about Coriolis effect. To the contrary, temperature gradient will influence your pressure gradient force. So question 8, correct option is answer A. With this, we come to the end of this quiz. I hope you have learned something new today, some new addition of knowledge to your reserves, and I also hope that you are able to answer questions on your own. Maximum all the 8 questions, if you are able to answer on your own, very good. If not, then also good because you are still learning, and to keep learning is the goal, is the purpose of this channel. So do hit the like button if you have liked this lecture. Keep learning, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with all your friends. See you in the next video.